Hello, welcome to Cooking for Cougs. These videos are brought to you by the Hospitality Business Management Club and the Coug Pantry of Washington State University, Vancouver. My name is Jared Knight, and the reason we're creating these videos are to help recipients of the Coug Pantry's resources better utilize them in a fun, healthy, and delicious way. Enjoy the video and go Cougs. So, welcome to the holiday edition, turkey edition of Cooking for Cougs. Today we're going to be working with this beautiful lady. Cooking a turkey can be a daunting thing, especially for a college student who may not have a lot of experience cooking, let alone cooking a huge bird. The thing about this is if you don't get it right, it could be just a 16 to 20 pound ball of salmonella. The thing about the breasts, if they are perfectly cooked, the back end is probably not going to be cooked, and if the back end is cooked correctly, the breasts are going to be overcooked. So we're going to break this bird down, and I'm going to show you how I like to do it. And everything we're going to be doing today is going to be done with a chef knife. Pretty much all of these episodes, we're going to try and keep it to one knife, so we're not getting too fancy. We want to keep this affordable. Make sure that everything can be done on a budget. Let's get started. Make this lady a little bit more comfortable. First off, these things, these little popper deals that whenever the bird's done, they pop out. Don't use these, this is garbage. Use a thermometer. Those things, either they won't pop and you'll just keep overcooking your bird, or they'll pop too soon, and then you've got some mid-rare breast, which is never fun. So just don't use those, rule of thumb. Let's just get all the giggles out of the way right now. Like, there's the neck. Looks like that's what we got. So there's the neck. You can always take this. There is some meat on it. Some people try and do stuff with it for their gravy. I just save that for stock. Now what we're gonna do is break this bird down. Like I said, I don't like cooking the breast the same time as the dark meat, so we're gonna fix that by taking the bird apart. So what we can do is, see, as you follow the bone, there's a joint. As you follow a bone, there's a joint. There's another joint up in there. We can turn her that way. We can just take it apart right here, and you can have gigantic hot wings that you can roast off for, you know, while you're cooking, you're watching football, get those going. Or we can break them down into flats and drums. So start with that. I haven't done this in a while, so hopefully I can hit the joint fairly quickly and not look like too much of a rookie. There you go. Let's leave that tip on there. It'll be a good little handle for eating it. Put that aside. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Boom. Done. Now she's T-Rexing. Let's leave them like that for now. The reason we're doing that is because you want some sort of stability when you're going to take the breasts off. If you take the legs off, if you take the arms off, and you try and come in here and cut the breasts, you're leaving yourself in a dangerous position. It's gonna be really wobbly. This is a really sharp knife, and you're getting your fingers in there, so you don't wanna have to go and have stitches done on your special day. Let's go ahead and start taking the breasts apart. First, I wanna make her a little bit more comfortable, so let's just do that. There we go. And how about a little more comfortable? All right, that gives me some nice stability. Now there's a breastbone that runs right along here. There's some bone to it, but there's a lot of cartilage to it. You can cut through it. So you don't want to do that. You don't want pieces of cartilage and bone in your breast. So you're just gonna wanna pick a side. It runs right down the middle, so just pick a side. Boom. See right in there, there's the side of it. So what we're gonna do here, here's the breast right here. There's your tenderloin underneath. What we're gonna do is go down till you hit rib. She's still a little frozen, that's okay though. Then we're just gonna turn the knife a little bit and just kind of cut along the rib. And I'm holding the meat here, I'm gonna pull that away as I'm just letting the tip kind of do the work. Just pull the meat away, and as you slice, see, it just kind of does it itself. Oh, hey, there's our giblets. They jammed them in the neck. Okay, well there's the hearts and kidney and whatever else that Grandma can fry up or put in some weird pie. All right, so what we're gonna do is just continue taking this breast off. Sorry for the pros watching this, I am kind of hacking that up a bit. Then once we get to the top, the wishbone's gonna be right in here. And there's that joint. So we're just gonna get in there and separate T-Rexy arm in there from the shoulder, right in there. All right, there we go. Getting kind of fancy here. By leaving this on, this is what we've created is called an airline breast, because that's a fancy little way that the airline used to serve chicken breasts on flights, not necessarily turkeys. This is more of like a Flintstone turkey breast. So there we go. Let's get this other one off. And so same way, just gonna kind of pull the meat back, turn the knife a little bit, follow the ribs down. Let's get some separation up top. It's just kind of cutting all along there, letting the weight of the meat peel it back. All right, gonna get in that joint. And you just want to work your knife in between the bones, and good to go. Got this plastic piece that they put in there that can get thrown away. All this excess fat in here can be cut away. You don't need that for anything unless you want to use it to like render and make a roux or something. I don't know. Turkey fat's not a very hot commodity. There's other fats that I'd like to use. So now that we're here, let's get these legs off. You're just gonna come in here, make that initial cut, and it's the same kind of thing, just following until you get into that joint. You can see it separating right in there. So, gonna get the knife in there, get those bones apart, and on birds, right in here, something that a lot of people miss, there's an oyster. Really nice tender piece of meat that you kind of want to get your knife in there. And it's like a little, almost like you can spoon it out. There's a little pocket that it sits in. So just take your knife, get around it like that. There's the oyster. There you go, leg and thigh, done. Moving to the other side. Something you can do to help you find that joint as well is, don't worry, she's not feeling this. She's not feeling anything anymore. You can just snap it, get the bone to pop out a little bit, so you know where to put your knife. You don't want to dull your knife up digging around in search of that joint. Let's get that. Oh, almost missed it. Get that oyster out. Boom, done. All right, So now you're just left with this carcass. What you're going to want to do with this is just go ahead and, as I was already doing, any of that excess fat you want to pull off. Even some of this skin, I mean, you can leave it on, you can pull it off. What we're going to do next for the next video is make stock. And typically when you're making stock, you want to roast the bones. So what we do is roast this carcass. And if we do it with too much excess fat on, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a smoky mess. It's going to set off our smoke detectors. My wife's up working. She's going to get really pissed. So let's get this aside. We'll come back to these guys. So let's finish out those wings. So you can get those going in case you want to brine them or anything. Again, just looking for that joint. If you look, you can kind of see where it is by wiggling it around. Let's go from the back side. You can see exactly where it is. Get in there, cut it off. Done. Let's get the other one. Here's that tenderloin like I was talking about. All right, let's get that off with that wing. A little extra piece of meat for someone. Boom. Done. Big old fatty wings. There's your breast. We're looking now at leg and thigh. So the way that we'll be cooking this meat is I like to braise the dark meat and do a ragout. So when I'm doing that, I typically want to remove the bone. You can braise it bone in or with the bone out. Braising is a wet process, so we're going to be using some stock to where you slow cook the meat in the stock, not like a stew, but you will be using some stock to slightly cover it and cooking it low and slow until it's tender. But for that stock, we will need bones. So what I like to do is debone it. We will do it both ways. I will debone one of these, leave the other whole for when we braise so you can see both processes. But we need at least one of them deboned. And be careful with this. Like, you see how that skin's moving around? Good thing to do is just get all the skin off. We don't need it. There we go. Get that skin off of there so you don't hurt yourself. All right, so then just take your knife. Let's cut around here. This is cutting all the tendons and the meat away from the bone. And turn sideways. Oh, we got a bone in there. And continue on like that. I'll get this finished up and we'll get to the next. So with browning the meat, got my pan getting hot, got all the meat here. Always have what you're going from, what you're going in, and then what you're gonna finish in after. Have all that ready so you're not scrambling with hot stuff right in the middle. It's a pain. With the stock that we have going back here, we will not be using that for this. Luckily though, because I make stock from the carcass like we just did, I have stock made from last year that I put in the freezer. It freezes really well. We will be using that for this. I've got it over here on a burner just getting warm, because as we're braising the meat and then as we cook the mirepoix, when we go to add liquid to it before we throw it in the oven, we don't want to be adding cold liquid to it. What's the point? It's just going to bring the temperature of everything down. It's going to take that much longer to bring it back up. So we're not bringing this up to a rip and boil. We're just trying to get it warm so we're not putting in cold stock. Let's get some oil in the pan. We'll get this meat browning. Wait a second, make sure it's nice and hot.
how much easier it is without stones, though, to like get it in there, get it more evenly down. Alright, so what we're doing here is deglazing. We're going to use some white wine. This is actually a Chardonnay that is alcohol free. I had a little too much fun with alcohol in the past, so I don't keep it at home, but this will work just fine. What this is going to do, by hitting that, all that nice stuff in the bottom of the pan is called fond. A fancy word for nice brown stuff that tastes good, and it's going to make everything else taste better. We want to get that up off of there before it really burns. So we're going to hit it with some wine. Probably set off the smoke detector in the process. Back in there. Alright. Set this aside, let's do the vegetables. That'll work.
All right, carrot about that size is fine. So, just like that. So once again, get our mirepoix in the bowl. Different colors of my cool, cute little spatulas out. Hitting it with a little bit more tomato paste like we did the stock. Just because I like that sweetness that it brings. Adds depth of flavor to the braise. Once again, cheap tomato paste. Don't need the expensive stuff for this. Nicely even coated.
A little bit of salt to it. Let it cook. A little garlic.
Getting there. Cooking, caramelizing the mirepoix. I season it as I go. What the salt does is it'll pull moisture out while it seasons. So that's going to steam off. It takes a little bit. Now we're actually getting down to the caramelizing point where you start seeing forming on the sides of the pan. Stuff start to stick a little bit, so this is where we start getting the color that we want. The tomato paste is going to go from red to nice golden brown. We're getting there. All right, let's deglaze that.
Now that we're done caramelizing the mirepoix, we still have all this good stuff in here. Pan's still hot. Going to take some of the stock, use that to deglaze. So we still have a lot of good stuff in that pan. Let's get that in there. cooked down mirepoix. Now for the braising, we're just going to add some stock. You want it just to where it comes up the sides. You don't need it submerged. We're not making stew. Some thyme. And I hadn't brought this up. You can grab this at local farmers markets. All farmers markets in Washington take EBT. Just a good tip. If you happen to be using any kind of pantry service, you may also qualify for EBT. So find out about that, but you can get this at local farmers markets. You can even grow this at your house. Start a little herb garden. This came from mine. You can also buy it at the store in little packs. They do charge a lot for what you get, but if you do purchase it, make sure you use it also. Let's throw it in with here. Thyme is really good with turkey. So we're going to put that in there. And I also like to throw some bay leaf in. We'll just push that down into the liquid. Now we're going to cover this. Oven is set at 300 degrees. We're going to pop the meat in there. And now we're going to let that go approximately 2 hours. We're going to let it go till tender. Approximately 2 hours, but actually when it starts smelling good, that's when we'll pull it and test it for doneness. That's good. That's a good sign. Oh yeah. Meat's just falling off the bone. It's exactly what you want. So now we'll just set this aside, let it cool down, and then we'll come back to it. Now we're on to the turkey breasts. One thing that I overlooked was I cannot find my roasting rack, but we were lucky enough to have another mistake to where I overdid it a little bit on the mirepoix for the dark meat. So this is a cool little hack to use if you don't have a roasting rack. You can take cut up vegetables like this, put it down in the bottom of a roasting tray, and there's your roasting rack. It lifts the bird up off the bottom of the pan so it's not frying in its own juices while it's roasting, and it a little steam's released off of it, keeps your bird from drying out. At least that's how I like to think of it. So let's go ahead and get the breasts in there. What we're going to do here is season with a little bit of black pepper. All right. Now transfer them over. We're just going to hit them with some kosher salt. Already hit the bottom side with some kosher salt. You did not see that, but I just don't want to make too much of a mess over here. Get the other bird over here. Before we pop them in the oven, something that I like to do when you're roasting, I have the oven set at 450. That's going to start the browning. I started out really high so I can start getting the skin crisped up, get it browned. Then once I see that forming, I'll drop it down to a lower temp, about 350, so the breasts cook through slowly and evenly. One of these is a cool thing to get, about $6 to $8 on Amazon as far as I remember, but it's a bottle specifically made for misting oil. If you don't want to spend that, you could just get a little brush like that and just pour some olive oil on like that. Brush it over it. I like to mist it. You could even use your hands, but I just like to get a little bit of oil on there. That helps get that skin nice and crispy and start that browning process. So we're gonna pop this in the oven right now, like I said, starting at 450. Once I start to see browning on the outside, skin crisping up, I'm gonna drop it down to 350 and let it go low and slow. All right. Both of the breasts, cooked them at 450 till they started browning, dropped it down to 350 until they temped in the thickest part. Usually right in here is good, the thickest part of the meat, till they hit 160
160 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning they are done through. These guys are finished. If you want to pull them out, let them rest on the cutting board for, 5 to 10 minutes. Let them contract a little bit before you slice into them, just so the juices don't run all over the place. But these breasts are done. In cutting, you want to go against the grain. And that is still really hot. Let's get a glove. Nice crispy skin. Oh, and it's gonna shoot juice anyway. There's your finished product. You can use arugula, always works. Just something pretty green on the plate, break up all that brown. You want to show your family how fancy you are? There you go. Done. Enjoy.